Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to your full moon lunar eclipse video with me, Raphael from Radiant Reality. So, on the 7th of September, we have a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces at 15 degrees of the sign, bang smack in the middle. We get what is known as a true eclipse because the north node is really tight to the moon is really tight to the node, right? This is a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. It's tied tightly to that north node. And this isn't just about endings, it's also about beginnings written in fate, right? Because this is a full moon lunar eclipse, but it's a full moon lunar eclipse on the north node, which is about bringing something into our lives, welcoming something into our lives. I like to think of the whole lunar cycle as a pregnancy, and I'm going to talk about that as we move forward. Something is ending at this time, but something brand new is also being born or brought to fruition. With Saturn adding its weight now, having re-entered or retrograded back into the sign of Pisces, Mercury, sharp as a surgeon, sharp as a tack in the sign of Virgo, and Jupiter in its exaltation, promising hidden blessings. This eclipse is really asking us all one question. What truth are you finally ready to communicate from your soul, and what reward is waiting on the other side? If you don't know, my name is Raphael. I am an astrologer, tarot reader, numerologist, and energy worker. For those of you that are continued subbies, you know Rafi loves you. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to like, share, and if you should so choose, and this resonates, hit that subscribe button. It would be lovely to have you in the Radiant Nation. There are a whole bunch of good things here for you. So with that said, this eclipse is a true eclipse because the moon is actually it's only a 3 degree orb away from the node, so it's tight. While this is a full moon lunar eclipse, I always like to think of the pregnancy cycle in that, right? So the full moon is a time of completion, it's a time of culmination, it's a time of ending. But with the full moon, just like a pregnancy, there's a beginning within an ending, right? And so what I mean by this is when a woman is massive and she's ready to drop, right? So she has the child. It's the end of pregnancy, but the beginning of the life of the child. It's the end of um, the time of time of maidenhood has already disappeared after, if you're pregnant, but at that time as well, it's the end of pregnancy, but it's the beginning of motherhood, right? So within the ending or the culmination, there is the next step or the thing that is coming to fruition in some way, shape, or form. You add to this that this is the North Node. As I said, this is a North Node eclipse. So while it is an eclipse of endings because it's a full moon, it's bringing something new, something that is coming in to stay. This eclipse is joined by a retrograde Saturn who has newly re-entered the sign of Pisces. He's at least 10 degrees away from the node and further still from the moon. So it's not, when I say like it's a part of the story as a background noise, but my feeling is that it will be felt as like a background weight that we can't quite put our finger on, but we can feel is there. It's almost like there's an element of consequence in there in some way, shape, or form. Now, this eclipse is opposing Mercury. Mercury is a strong player here, right? Mercury is in the sign of its exaltation. Certainly in the ancient tradition, Mercury in the sign of Virgo was said to be exalted. Mercury in Virgo in the tarot is the Ten of Pentacles, right? Just to give you a little idea or a little flavor of this. Because he's in his own sign, Mercury is really helping us, and it's obviously very closely aligned to the sun as well, right? So Mercury is helping us communicate something from that soul-led part of us, and is really asking us to become a surgeon with words, to really think about what we're saying. This is a very smart, very well-informed Mercury who really has its proverbial shit together. Right? On the other side of the sun, we have and because it's on the other side of the sun, we've got that Mercury helping us understand what our soul may have communicated around the time of the Pisces new moon that kind of set all of this into motion. And I want to talk about that shortly. So let's stay tuned and I'll get into that. Now, eclipses in general are what we call fated events. This is why they always get such a buzz going, right? Because in ancient times, when we had an eclipse, people knew, right? The astrologers, the stargazers, the people, the very early early astrologers would observe these celestial phenomena and they would tie them to events that took place here on Earth. Now, you think this is stuff that they gathered knowledge, wisdom, and, literally by watching and correlating over hundreds, thousands of years of collating this data. And so they started to understand that when the luminaries, the sun and the moon, are having their eclipses, big things tend to happen in the space of life that specific celestial happening takes place. So whatever house this is happening in your chart is likely to be where you are having a bit of a shake up or a shift point. So that being said, it's showing you where, or what happens outside of that, how fate is working in your life in some way, shape, or form. And you add to that that the moon's ruler, Jupiter, is in his sign of exaltation, in the sign of Cancer, who is trine to the north node and sextile to the south node. So there really does feel like a fated kind of energy behind this. Now, all eclipses to some degree are, they are moments or points of fate and destiny. However, this one seems to be ramped up because what does Jupiter do? It amplifies, it expands everything that it touches. This is us communicating really and truthfully not only our worth but also our sentiments. Jupiter in a sextile to the sun, which is in the sign of Virgo as well, is highlighting our efforts. There's definitely an air of recognizing one's own strong suits here, where we need and also finding a need to communicate from the soul about what has been revealed to be important to you, right? And how and you can, and also how you will serve the world in some way, shape, or form. After all, the sun in Virgo is opposing the moon, which is in the sign of Pisces. Now, this is a health axis, so we may see something play out on the wider world stage around the healthcare industries, etc. Jupiter is also, because Jupiter is in its exaltation, and the moon is in Pisces, which is Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. So while Mercury is very strong, the moon is also very nicely supported by that Jupiter energy. Now, there's a feeling of opportunity and chance and luck. And in a sextile to the sun, we can have an opportunity that comes up unbidden and unexpected as a kind of cosmic reward for whatever we have kind of put the efforts into previously. It's also possible with this that with this combination, the opportunities that do arise can be really beneficial, but maybe they have a hidden element to them. After all, when you're thinking about an eclipse, what is an eclipse? We lose the light of the luminary for a moment. They are effectively, in one way, shape, one sort of way or another, they're dealt a blow, right? And so we kind of lose the light for a moment. Something comes through, something happens, something unfolds. We don't have quite all of the information. So it's kind of like the universe says, I'm going to give you this, but you also get this. You're kind of like, I don't know if I want the bonus prize though, because it doesn't really feel like a bonus prize. It is, after all, an eclipse. So, there's going to be a little bit of upheaval about it. There's going to be intensity about it. Now, you add to that this is a full moon on steroids. Well, what happens around the time of the full moon? I always tell this story, especially to my tarot students. We talk about it a lot in that class. And the reason I tell this story is because I think it's really relevant. So when I worked at, many moons ago now, I'm showing my age, I worked at a bar. And this was before I'd started formally studying astrology. And I'll never forget, one of the bouncers turned to the other and he went, "Oh, it's a full moon tonight." And I was like, okay, Raph's like, okay, my ears went up because I was like, who's talking about full moons? Let's go. I want to hear. And at that point, obviously started to notice, and I was speaking to certain people. You can verify this. Police officers, people that work in emergency rooms, doctors and nurses that work as first responders, etc., bouncers in clubs, they all look out for it because around the time of the full moon, people are that much more heightened. Our emotions are that much more to the surface. Here in the UK, it was repealed, I think, probably about 15, maybe more years ago now. But here in the UK, if you committed a crime of passion, underneath a full moon, you could actually use that to claim that you were lunatic at the time. That's where we get the word lunatic from, right? You kind of just go a little bit cray. And, being because obviously everyone knows I've got a Cancer moon, I'm very proud of that fact. But being a lunar person myself, I can definitely attest to the fact that the lunar cycles really, really hit me very hard. Now, speaking of lunar cycles, I put out a video that the members got. So memberships are back. If you haven't got yours yet, there's a link in the description box below where you can sign up. The members got early access to a video that I created about how the next 3 to 6 months worth of moons, these eclipses included, are actually going to be activating your dreams, and how they are going to be activating your dreams, and what you need to know about the messages that are coming through there. All right, so make sure you check that out. It will be released to the general public, I believe, tomorrow, if you're watching this today or tomorrow. um, Today or tomorrow. Give us some dates, Raf. You'll see it, right? Just look out. So that being said, it's also worth noting that Mars in Libra is challenged, right? He's currently in a square to the Jupiter energy as well. So there's that part of this unfolding. And it suggests to me that an action that you desire to take, Mars in Libra, is challenged by either some kind of familial or patriotic tie, right? Jupiter in Cancer. But you know deep down in your heart what is right for you. And if it feels deeply unfair to be challenged in this kind of way because you feel like someone or something is taking advantage of their position. So watch out for that. This is something to consider, really carefully, because there could be some depth to this. Now, I'm going to pull up the chart for, he says, where are you? Haha. So I'm going to pull up the chart, and I'm hoping, ooh, it's very loud. Let's shut that down right about now. All right, so I'm going to pull up the chart. I have this set for London. If you are elsewhere in the world, obviously you're going to have to set this to your own location, just because I use London because I am in the UK, darling. Okay, so here we have the moon at 15 degrees. We've got the North Node at 18 degrees, so there's a 3-degree orb between them. They're very close to each other, so this is what we call like a true eclipse. You've got their Saturn in the background, right? As that background kind of noise. It's re-entered Pisces. This is an energy that we've not long wrapped up. It's going to be here now until like February, I believe, after which time it will move back into Aries and hit the actual conjunction with Neptune. I do find it really interesting, sidebar, that Saturn and Neptune actually did meet their conjunction in Aries at 1 degree, but both of them were retrograde. So I'm kind of really intrigued by this idea because yeah, there's I mean, I put out a video on that as well, which I'll also link to in the description box below, where I talked about what I think that's doing for humanity and more importantly, why and where it's going to take us. Then opposing this, as you can see, that you've always got the sun and the moon opposed to each other at the time of a full moon. So your soul is saying one thing, but your needs and your emotions are saying something else. We've got Mercury here in his own sign, very strong. I've got the south node very close to the sun. And look, right, we've got Jupiter here at 19 degrees of Cancer, sextile to the sun, right? Also, I mean, a sextile to the node as well. It's a very wide orb to say that it's sextile to Mercury, so I'm not counting that. But it's also in a trine to the north node and a trine to the moon. Now, given the moon is in the sign of Pisces, the ancient ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, who is very nicely positioned, right? He's in a real strong place. Jupiter loves to be in Cancer. It does good work there. So he's sending really nice, harmonious, positive energy to this moon. So while it's not the moon in its exaltation, it is getting a really nice, strong energy from its ruler. And at the time of totality, it's still heading towards meeting the exact trine to Jupiter, which suggests that even after the event itself, and remember, 3 to 6 months is the orb that an eclipse will unfold over, even after the fact, it's kind of going to be the gift that keeps on giving, right? So I love that. I also love the fact that Mercury is in its exaltation. It's helping us communicate what our soul really wants or needs, what it knows, right? And then obviously we've got Jupiter in a square to Mars, which it's going to have a little edge to it. Let's not say that it won't because it will. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to show you here. It's not an exact thing by degree, but I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I want you to think back to the new moon of March 2024, right? Go all the way back to that point and ask yourself, what were you setting into motion at that time? What was coming to fruition? What were you, not coming to fruition, but what were you setting into motion? Especially in the Pisces area of your chart. What were you sort of working on, working towards? What was important for you? What contracts were you signing? What partnerships were you forging? What spiritual beliefs were you putting into place? What were you moving on in a way that you could say, yeah, this would be tied to that? And I'm going to show you why now. Because, and as I say, the degrees aren't exact, but lunations tend to follow a cycle. And this is the work, I'm getting this very, very loose, probably nowhere near doing it justice, so I apologize in advance. But this work is actually from an astrologer called Dietrich Pessins. And Dietrich discovered that the lunations travel in families. So you've got this full moon taking place at 15 degrees of Pisces. So we're going to go back 9 months from now. And remember, a lunation hits kind of four big a lunation in general hits four kind of big points, right? So you have the new moon, you have the waxing first quarter square, you have the full moon, and then you have the waning quarter square, or the third quarter square as it's called, and then it goes down and goes back to the new moon. Well, watch this, right? 9 months ago, take it back. You see the moon there in the sign of Pisces. Now I'm going to move this forward uh, so that it hits the right degree. Let's take this to 1, and we're going to move it forward until it hits the first quarter square, right? So the moon here in Pisces at 15 degrees is square to the sun at 16 of Sagittarius. So we have the first quarter square there, which was actually, interestingly enough, and this is the 8th of December of 2024. What were you starting to really make traction on at that point, or starting to realize would take some work? Now we're going to go back again another 9 months to the new moon of 2024. And that takes us all the way to here. Let's put this right and make it some days. And then let's move it forward. So as I said, it's not exact by the degree, but it's pretty damn close, right? So we take this all the way up to the moon, new moon being at 20 degrees of Pisces. Around the 10th of March of 2024, you probably can't see that, can you? I've just realized I'm not sharing my screen. Act. All right, so let me start here because I've just explained that, but you haven't seen it. All right, so on the 10th of March of 2024, we have a new moon in the sign of Pisces at around 9:08 London time, right? So we have this new moon at 20 degrees. It's a 5-degree orb out, but that's pretty impressive, even still, right? So this happens, and we set something into motion. Around March, 10th of March of 2024, what were you setting into motion? What was actually something that you were moving on, moving towards? I know exactly what was happening for me at this time. And interestingly enough, this is 7 days after my nan passed. So, and you all know that story. Um, and I know exactly what was happening for me personally at the time, like in my life, aside from, my nan. So 9 months later, watch what happens. We hit, oh, yeah, change that to days. On the 8th of December, the moon passes through, oh, hours. The moon passes through the square to the sun, right? So that's the first quarter square after the Pisces new moon, right? There she is, Luna in the malefic enclosure, deep joy. Right now, skip forward another 9 months, and lo and behold, what do we have? On the 7th of September, we are going to have hours. Uh, oh, no, that's what are you doing? On the 7th of September, we have the full moon lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Pisces, right? So this eclipse is bringing to fruition into tangible materiality in some way, shape, or form, whatever we started or seeded around that new moon in Pisces. Now, what's really interesting about this is that new moon on its own was particularly quite challenging, but look at how it ends, deeply supported by its ruler, right, Jupiter, in the sign of Cancer. This tells me that there are blessings here for the hard road that you've traveled with whatever it is that you've been working on creating, making, bringing into fruition in some way, shape, or form in the sign of Pisces. This is where we get the rewards. Now, remember, an eclipse will unpack. It's kind of like a toolbox. I see it as like the universe gives you a box when it gives you the eclipse, right? And then over the next 3 to 6 months that follows, depending on how big this is activating in your chart as well, you will see what shifts or what moves. And I'm really, really excited for this one, just because of the link to Jupiter. I really feel like there's going to be something special that comes out of it. So I hope that helps you kind of conceptualize to give you like a little bit of food for thought to say, okay, actually, what was I manifesting around that new moon? What was I setting into motion? What was the big focus for me at the time that seemed to be emerging in my world or seemed to be a thing that was beginning at that time? Because now you're going to start to see it in its totality. And also, obviously, because it's an eclipse, there's going to be, there's going to be some feathers ruffled because of it as well. So, with that said, let's get into the breakdown for the 12 signs. If you are an Aries, this full moon lunar eclipse is happening for you in the sign of, it's obviously happening in the sign of Pisces for everybody, but it's happening in your 12th house. A 12th house full moon lunar eclipse is the equivalent of shining a light in the deepest, darkest recesses of yourself and your psyche. I also see this one as well, like, and maybe this is just my experience of it, but when I had eclipses bouncing back and forth through my 6th and 12th house, the way that I really understood the full moon lunar eclipse in the 12th is it's like it shines a spotlight on all of your self-sabotaging tendencies. It reveals your true hidden enemies to you, whether those are the ones that are coming from inside the house or those are the, ones that are coming from people around you. Because the 12th house is also a store of karmic energy, I see this as kind of a reset or a burning away of the karma that you've accumulated over the last 18, 19 years. I say that because the last time the North Node was in your 12th house was 18 or 19 years ago. So think back then as well, right? You've got the smaller cycle going all the way back to the 10th of March of 2024. Now think about the larger cycle of the last 18, 19 years. What has unfolded for you in that space? The question becomes, what baggage and challenges are you ready to release now? What karma are you willing to really kind of move beyond by forgiving both debts and grievances? And I say this not because I think you should let things slide, but the universe is giving you a 12th house full moon eclipse. This is an eclipse of completion, of an ending point. It's a full moon on steroids, right? Which means that this is a time that your stored and accumulated karma, both good and bad, can be released. The good karma can be released to go out into the world to bring you things that you desire or that you love. The 12th house is a hidden space in the chart, so it could also be ancestral blessings that come to you at this time. The North Node is giving them a portal to come through into your world, right? In some way, shape, or form. So do yourself the courtesy of allowing the karma to be washed away or washed clean in some regard. And I say washed because Pisces is, obviously Aquarius is the water bearer, but Pisces is the sea, right? It's the ocean. Although it is a wide orb, it's opposing a very strong Mercury in his home sign, which for you is in the sixth house, which means that something on a soul level will need to be communicated. And maybe you have a realization about, not only who you are, but and the worth that you bring to the world, but also you begin to really understand and communicate what your own service to the world is and how you can enhance your own daily experience by finding the God in the detail of it all. They say the devil is in the detail. Maybe you find the opposite, right? Your inner and outer worlds are being highlighted along with your mental and spiritual Pisces, right? And your physical and bodily vitalities, Virgo, that are being highlighted. So, how have you been caring for these aspects of yourself? If you have been at all, right? And in the trine to Jupiter, the moon's ruler is lovely. It's in your fourth house, your emotional self may be feeling strong enough and ready to heal, to move on, to allow the goodness of life to really unfold for you. And maybe this comes through family, through, I wouldn't say inheritance, because inheritance would be the eighth house. Interestingly enough, though, um, it does make me wonder just because it's in the fourth house. So maybe this has something to do with home, family, maybe even has something to do with property, because the Jupiter energy in the fourth is trining that 12th house. So this could be some kind of legacy that is given to or left behind for you from a loved one. And that doesn't have to be resources, money, it could be, but it could just as easily be that there's some kind of, spiritual blessing or enhancement that comes through as well. Before we start, or should I say, before I pull cards, I would like to bless my deck of cards with all forms of love, light, peace, prosperity, and abundance. And I pray that the messages that come through are ultimately clear and concise. They help us all on our paths to our highest vibrational good. So for you, Aries, your tarot message for the eclipse is the Tower card, right? So this could be a time of surprises. It could be a surprise blessing. It could be something that comes into your world that is wonderful, but is completely disruptive. Remember, your ruling planet is in the sign of Libra at the time of this eclipse. So it may be that whatever arises, maybe you can't move on it directly at this, at the time that it comes up, but you're like, okay, I need to consider this and I'll do something with it, as and when I can, when I move forward. The other thing with this as well, because it is an eclipse, this is wild. Eclipses are already wild card energy. The Tower card is very often a surprise that we do not see coming. And this could be, right, that 12th house. Maybe there is a hidden enemy of some sort that comes forward. Maybe there is some information that comes forward at this time that has you go, oh, now that I know that, I can make a different plan moving forward. For Taurus, this is happening in your 11th house. A full moon eclipse in your 11th house is bringing your attention to your hopes, your dreams, and the people who support or hinder them. This is a potent time for evaluating your long term and long held visions, what you've been working towards, and whether the people around you are truly aligned to those goals. You might find that some of your connections are being illuminated for what they truly are, whether they're helpful or hindering in some way, shape, or form. Your friendships, your group associations, your social media presence and interaction, all of it in some way, shape, or form flavors and either enhances or diminishes your plans and your future goals, right? Well, now you're going to see them in stark clarity. And when you do, you will understand whether you want more of them or less. It's also a time where the collective energy of community and social networks are coming into play. What you've been contributing to your communities, whether this is a group or a cause or broader social circles, is about to come into sharper focus. These, and really that's the question, right? Are the networks that you have feeding or draining your energy? This eclipse is really offering you a chance to clear out any toxic or outdated associations, friendships, connections, or maybe even just to make space for a more nurturing community, friendships, and relationships. In the opposition to the full moon, that Mercury energy of communication is key because it's over there in the fifth house, which is all about how you express yourself, how you share who you are with the world. It's a personal business if you've got one, it's your children. This could also be whether your internal dialogue might start to shift about how you express what your needs and your desires are to other people. It could also be a realization that comes to mind about your place within the social circle and how you can further hone your role in the world. In a lot of ways, this could be where you kind of say, like, everybody sees me as this, and actually, I don't resonate with that anymore. Maybe at one point in my life that was me, but it isn't me now. And maybe I don't fully know who I am now, but I know who I'm not, and I also know that I'm becoming something different. As you start to reflect on what's being revealed, do think about what your dreams are, which of the dreams that you have that are truly coming from within, and which are the ones that have been programmed or conditioned into you from other people's expectations. Now, the energy of Jupiter for you is going to be in the third house, the ruler of the moon, and it's connecting in that really harmonious aspect to both the moon and the north node. It's bringing an expansive opportunity through communication, through learning, short distance travel, your local neighborhood. If you're changing neighborhood or new people are moving in, these could suddenly be very good opportunities for you. They might bring these things to you. It could be a great time where new ideas really start to flow in, or ideas that you have can actually begin production now, for a deeper understanding of the way or the world around you. And on top of that, Mercury opposing the full moon, do think about sort of where you overpromise or where you overcommit. Think about the messages that you send out and whether they align with what your intentions actually are. Now, that Mars Jupiter square, you might need to assert yourself when it comes to how your ideas are received by others. So if somebody poo-poos something or they shoot it down, and you really believe in it, you might have to stand on business, right? And say, actually, no, you know what? This is what I feel. This is what I believe. This is what I know to be right for myself or for the situation. Whether it's personal or professional or platonic, it's time for you to stand up for your voice, even if it means pushing through some resistance from others, right? And it may very well. There's a risk of pushing yourself too hard in pursuit of mental stimulation or intellectual growth. Be sure to balance your enthusiasm with this. And I want to say with this as well, when a hobby stops being enjoyable, it's no longer a hobby, it's crossed over into the realm of a chore. All right, like when it stops being enjoyable, then it's no longer a hobby. It's no longer something that you're doing for pleasure. Your tarot message is the Six of Swords, and so your message around this full moon is don't be afraid to interact with and absorb everything and anything from around you. Don't be afraid to explore your local area. Don't be afraid to think about what the bigger picture looks like for you if you are tied to the right people. And sometimes that means literally going where the good stuff is. Gemini, this for you is happening in your 10th house. A full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces is in your 10th house of career, your public life, your interactions, connections with, and personal authority. It's also your status out in the world, the legacy that you're leaving behind when your time is done. The 10th house is also like, married is a status, single is a status. Homeowner, employee, business owner. These are all statuses. With the energy of this eclipse, do expect significant revelations in regard to your professional trajectory. Like something about this is really going to be shifting in some way, shape, or form. Like, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised in the way that it does. The revelations that show up around career could see you really meeting the world in some way and getting great opportunities to amplify your voice, your work, your business, what you do in the world, or even to position yourself as an authority. Now, you'll know whether I'm speaking to you there or not. Do you remember at the beginning of the cycle with the new moon, we had that Saturn energy quite close? So if you've done the work, if you've worked really hard at it and you know it's been blood, sweat, and tears, this is where the rewards are going to come now, right? This is where people are going to say, like, damn, like you are an authority in this field, and you'll know because you'll have worked for it. It's time for you to get rid of outdated ambitions and identities that no longer serve you, opening like new doors to new opportunities in your public facing life. Your experience might start to shift now with like in your career, and this is because as you're letting go of something that's been either weighing you down, or maybe you're presented with a new opportunity that gives you the chance to really present who you feel you are now, like who you have become, who you feel like you are more fully realized as. There is an emotional weight to this eclipse as well, and I will say, like, for some of you, this might show up as a chapter that's no longer in alignment with who you really feel that you are becoming. Whether this is a job, a relationship, a colleague, an old vision of what success was for you, especially where those visions are linked to either parents, parental figures, authority figures, people that you looked up to, or people that are authorities. I never forget, I had one boss who she was brilliant. And I know in a lot of ways, she never actually said it, but I kind of got the feeling that she was sort of, not in a dodgy way, but like I feel like she was kind of grooming me for a specific job role. It obviously wasn't for me because I ended up here. Um, but when I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, wow, okay, like that would have been amazing, but equally, it wouldn't have been for me in the long run. And so you might see that now in family, in a boss, in a partner. You kind of realize, like, oh, wow, you're pushing me to become more of this. And actually, I don't feel like more of that. Like, I feel like I'm actually going in this way. Now, Mercury in your fourth house opposing this full moon is bringing an important focus to your home, your family, and your emotional foundations. It's also highlighting conversations that you need to have around security of your internal world, the inner scaffolding about who you really are and how you feel about how you are viewed is really coming through here. It's a time for you to really communicate clearly with yourself and also the people that are close to you about how your career and your personal life must coexist for you to give your best. What the changes are that might need to happen in order for, at home, in order for you to really pursue the kind of career that you want. Jupiter for you is in the second house of your money, your finances, your values, your possession, and your self-worth. Wherever Jupiter goes, Venus is the same. they tend to clear up that area. They clean it up. They give it a really good zhuzh, and then they deliver the blessings, right? I kind of see them as like nutrient bringers. They bring the nutrients that we need in that specific area for our, that part of our chart or our personality or our lives even to grow in some way. It's forming a really harmonious connection to the North Node, and it's bringing that expansive opportunities for growth related to your money, your finances, personal security, possessions that you have or maybe desire to have. Remember, homeowner is also a status. This is an excellent time for you to really think about your financial goals and how those are either tied to your career, which let's face it, they need to be, or not. And the question is, are you positioning yourself in the right way for abundance? If not, Jupiter in this house is going to help you see the bigger picture of your financial path, the plans there or lack of, should that be the case, and the value that you place on yourself and how this translates into the material sort of success that you can reap from the world. The eclipse is bringing a breakthrough, right, in your financial energies, I think, especially over the next 3 to 6 months. And the eclipse is triggering this powerful axis between your public life and your private life, your home life. Like who you are at home behind closed doors is not the same person that you are in front of the camera or, out there on the wider world stage. It's just not the case, right? Um, Trust that whatever is shifting for you at the moment is really laying the groundwork for bigger and greater success when it comes to your career, and whatever is falling away at this moment in time, it's only going to help you build both materially and emotionally. For this, you have the Queen of Wands. So, in some way, shape, or form, your creative vision and power and vigor is what's really trying to shine through here for you, Gemini. Another way that this could also show up is this is really about you finding the power within yourself to separate the two things, to say, actually, I don't want this part of my public life to affect my home, right? I don't want this part of my relationship at home or, where I live or the place that I'm from or whatever to affect how I'm seen out in the world. You might need to put your foot down to say, I'm going to keep these two aspects of myself separate, and that is how I'm going to do it. And let's face it. Let's be honest. That's I was trying to say both of those things at the same time, clearly not succeeding. Um, and let's face it, if anyone can do that, it's you, right? That is what Gemini does the best, better than anybody else. That wonderful sense of duality and holding two things at once instead of just having to be one. So love that. Love that. So, Cancer, for you, this is taking place in your ninth house, and a lunar eclipse in the ninth house is illuminating your house of higher education, travel, philosophy, creating a moment of powerful revelation and release around your beliefs, right? Your ninth house is your belief system. In ancient astrology, this was called the house of God. And the way that I understand this is it is your perspective on the world, but it's also your belief system. It's also how you connect to the cosmos, right? The eighth house and the 12th house are more about your psychic and spiritual interaction, whereas your ninth house is more about your religious and spiritual practices, what you are doing, what beliefs and structures and routines and rituals that you have around your belief structure that are either supporting or hindering your life. Now, um, the ninth house also governs your search for meaning, right? The long distance journeys, physical and intellectual, that your mind will go on, that you will quest for truth on or with. And a full moon lunar eclipse in this sign, in this house as well, is asking you to evaluate your current worldview, how that aligns with who you are becoming, where you are going. This is time for letting go of outdated philosophies and embracing new perspectives that resonate more deeply with your true self. What I also love about this as well, it kind of feels like it's like you're seeing the practices that you're doing much clearer, and you're saying, right, these ones are actually working, these ones are actually giving me results, and these ones really aren't. This could also, for some of you as well, mark the end of a chapter in your intellectual or spiritual journey. Maybe you're culminating some form of study. Maybe you've been at school, maybe you've been learning a course, maybe you've been studying astrology, or whatever it is. Maybe you've been studying something at a higher level, because remember, the ninth house is higher or further education. It's also where you specialize in something. It's where you go a lot deeper than the usual. And for some of you, this might be making way for new learning experiences that really broaden your horizons in some way, whether that is a course of study or a belief system. Maybe you've been thinking about doing some form of travel. Maybe you're doing some kind of travel at this time. Obviously, keep your wits about you because it is an eclipse. Mercury's opposition to this full moon is happening from your third house of communication, siblings, your immediate surroundings, and it's bringing a focus on how you communicate your newfound wisdom and beliefs, and also how you take that bigger and higher knowledge and start to use or disseminate it on a much smaller level, right? Because the ninth house is the higher mind and far distance travel. The third house is local travel, the local environment. It's how you take those big concepts, break them up into pieces, and start to use them in a very practical day-to-day experience kind of way. There's potentially tension here, like between what you're learning and how you express it in your day-to-day life. It's also a really powerful moment for revisiting or revising your narratives on how your environment is either supporting or challenging your intellectual growth. And the truth of the matter is, um, when you move away from the places that you know, from the places that you've always been, that you've grown up in, you tend to learn exponentially more. You tend to work exponentially harder because you don't have the usual distractions or ties, but more importantly, because you don't have the familiarity, right? So there's yeah. Anyway, you get my point. It's a moment to have really important conversations that clarify your path forward. Remember, the ninth house is a future orientated house because it looks to the 10th. So this could be whether this is with friends, family, mentors. Remember, the ninth house is coaches, gurus, mentors, people that you look up to. This could highlight a mentor, a coach, or a guru for you, where you look at them and say, like, wow, that I could really learn a lot from this person, or maybe I've already learned as much as I'm going to be able to learn from this person, and I need a different teacher. I need somebody new now. Jupiter in your first house of yourself. Your personal identity is connecting you beautifully to this North Node, and it's amplifying the opportunities that are showing up for self expression, for your personal growth, aligning your outward presence with your internal wisdom, even if that is newly sort of covered or newly found wisdom. It also makes this a really wonderful time for you to expand on your image or your brand, or maybe even your public persona, or maybe even thinking about how that is a direct reflection on the deeper insights and spiritual truths that you house. There's a potential here for you to align your career and your personal life, your public identity with your evolving beliefs, helping you to stand more firmly in who you really feel you are. Now, that North Node is guiding you forward, and it's helping you expand your mind and travel, long distance travel to different places, different shores. I remember something that my dad said to me years ago was that every place that you visit, every new place that you go to that is abroad or completely foreign to you, different attributes or elements of who you are evolve out of you. And I found that to be true. Like, you discover something new about yourself in each new place, right? Because a different element of you has to rise up in order to meet the needs of the environment that you find yourself in. As you grow into a more authentic version of yourself, Cancer, you're going to attract the resources, the recognition, and the connections that are really going to support your journey. It's an eclipse that encourages you to release anything that really doesn't serve your newfound expanded vision or tries to keep it small, and embrace the opportunities that are going to help you grow into your fullest potential. For this, you've got the Ten of Swords. I'm seeing this as like who you were is no longer who you are, and how you now present yourself to the world and how you now move forward and who you're going to be from here on in is somebody else. And because you've got this Ten of Swords, what and who you once identified yourself with is now leaving, I kind of feel in a way, because it's the ninth house, right? Like you no longer need a coach, a mentor, or a guru because you're becoming the coach, the mentor, or the guru. All right. So, Leo, my ascendant brothers and sisters. This full moon it's a big one for you because you are the sun, right? So this is always going to hit you that much more. I forgot to mention that for Cancer. I hope they don't mind. This full moon lunar eclipse is falling in the sign of Pisces in your eighth house. This is one of the deepest areas of the chart. It's one of the heaviest areas of the chart. This is the house of transformation, shared resources, taxes, loans, debts. It's intimacy, sex, so deep psychological exploration and patterns. This is the house of your crises and your trauma, and this governs the parts of ourselves that we often hide away because they're considered taboo. So this could be your anger, it could be your shame, it could be your fear, it could be your oh fuck me. Do you know what? Something that's just occurred to me is a friend of mine who probably knows me better than save like one or two other people throughout my Saturn transit, because obviously as Leo rising, Saturn was transiting my eighth house, right? And I remember him saying to me, like, I've never seen you this fearful about anything. And I think it really worried him because I'm quite like, when I say aggressive, I don't mean like aggressive. Well, I'm not always. Right? I don't mean like that, but I'm quite aggressive in the way that I approach things. Even if I'm afraid, like I will meet it head on. Like I'm very, very headstrong, and I usually dive straight in. I don't hold back. I don't let things stop me in certain ways, and I meet things just head on. I really always have. And I think it really scared him because he was like, I've never seen you this fearful. I've never seen you so sort of, like what's going on with you? And I really, I did some deep exploration and I really found that Saturn moving through the eighth house absolutely did that for me. And it's interesting that we had, the new moon with Saturn in Pisces. I talked about that earlier. And the fact that Saturn has dipped back into Pisces as a part of this eclipse story is really interesting to me. So, the eighth house is about the parts of us that we hide away, our shame, our guilt, our anger. It's our deep psychological makeup. It's our, fantasies. It's our kinks, if we've got any, which the people that really scare me in the world are the ones that say they don't have any. I'm just going to leave that there. So suddenly this got a lot more interesting. Jokes aside, and this eclipse is an opportunity to shine a light on those hidden corners of yourself, bringing deep revelations about the things that you need to let go of in order for you to evolve, or as the eighth house speaks to, transform, right? Eclipses are always about endings and beginnings, large ones and small ones in some way, shape, or form. And with this one taking place in your eighth house, the energy is ripe for releasing old emotional and psychological baggage, especially related to fear, debt, attachments. The eighth house is sex. If you've had hang-ups or worries about sex and sensuality and all of those kinds of things, this could be a time that you start to work through that. Luckily, I don't have any of those, darling. Um, but if you do, right, this could be a time where you really delve into it. Maybe you have crisis or trauma around those things, right? I worked through mine and came out the other side of it a much stronger being. This is a really powerful time for cutting cords with past relationships or situations that really no longer align with not only your true purpose, but with who you really are. Whether it's financial entanglements, emotional ties, subconscious patterns that have been weighing you down in some way. The eighth house is an addictive house as well. So it's the eighth house is a very devil card energy. So if you have kind of things like that, then this could be where you really get to the root of them, right? This full moon is shining a spotlight in this really deep recess of your chart to say, this is the cause, this is the root cause of this thing that you've been carrying. This eclipse is likely to bring closure or culminations in the areas of shared finances, inheritances, taxes, loans, mortgages, if you've got one, intimate partnerships. I find it really interesting as well. Like if you have shared resources, because the blessing is coming from that Jupiter energy over there in your, which is back there in your 12th house. This could be some kind of support or kind of I feel like this might be some kind of spontaneous blessing that comes in around money or finances because the eighth house is a finance house. It's also how you engage on a deep level, on a transformational level. Now, Mercury and the Sun, both in your second house of personal values, your possessions, self-worth, is also aligning and helping you really articulate what is actually important to you, what is worthy about you, which is everything, of course, Leo. It's also a time for clarity around how your values impact your relationships and your ability to thrive financially. That Mercury's opposition to the full moon is showing you that a conversation or a realization, might surface at this time around how your intimate relationships or your shared resources are tied to your own sense of value, which is definitely the case, but also it could be that a really important conversation happens that gets you to see something in a different perspective, that shows you how your thinking around money, finances, and resources actually needs to be reset in some way. And this could absolutely, bust the doors of all of this wide open. You could experience a really deep reflection on what you need or feel emotionally and materially, what you need in order to feel emotionally and materially secure, as well as how you're communicating your worth and your value with the world, right? Are you really taking time to do that, or are you just hoping that people will notice? At the same time as this, Venus is in your first house, supporting your self-expression, making you more attractive, making you more harmonious, bringing good energy to you, even though it's not a part of this story. It still is effectively because we're talking about you and your sign. This is a sense of magnetic allure all around you, right? So find a way to use that and convert it into the things that you desire or require. Jupiter in your 12th house, the house of the subconscious, of spiritual growth, hidden strengths, and also your, hidden enemies, which sometimes are parts or versions of self that are sabotaging you. This is harmonizing with that North Node in the eighth house, offering an opportunity for spiritual insights or intuitive breakthroughs. It would not be a surprise to me if some of you, have really powerful dreams around this time. Speaking of dreams, if you haven't seen the dream, Your Dreams Are Speaking to You video that I put out, there's a link for that in the description box below. Check it out. The members got early release to that video, just like they did to this one. So if you want to check those out, that's also in the link in the description box below. The 12th house represents the unseen realm, the intangible, and Jupiter amplifies this. It's amplifying your connection to higher wisdom, your personal intuitive faculty, your ability to connect to the other realm is high right now. Jupiter is helping you do and also to help you navigate sort of really deep emotional waters in some regard. Remember, it is a full moon. It's a full moon on steroids, so it's gonna be intense. It's gonna have its moments. Any of the realizations that arise now or bubble up from your subconscious are going to guide you towards the kind of freedom and transformation that you really want or desire in your life. You could also feel, you might experience like a period of spiritual growth that really supports your evolution and helps you release some of these patterns that I was talking about earlier. Now, Mars over there in your third house in the sign of Libra is communicating and learning, but it's urging you to take action. So it's like how you share your thoughts, your ideas, your emotions, what you put out into the world, how you put it out into the world. Be careful that your desire to speak up doesn't sort of see you clash with people or maybe come across as a bit sort of like this. All in all, this eclipse is a moment of profound transformation. And as you're starting to let go of what no longer really builds you up or what really doesn't allow the best of you to come to the forefront or subdues or suppresses you in some way, if you're letting that go, you're opening up to new opportunities for emotional and financial abundance, as well as a deeper, more meaningful connection to your partner, should you have one, or welcoming one in. Trust that the universe is guiding you towards a greater sense of self, and it starts from a very deep place within you. Your message for this is the Lover's card. So this suggests that there is a relationship element to this for a lot of you, whether that's a financial relationship or an intimate relationship, but partnerships of all kinds are being highlighted here for you. Interesting, because obviously Virgo is next up. The other way that I want to say this could also show up for you is because the Lover's card, as you know, represents choice and balancing out the two opposing forces that maybe don't necessarily usually come together. You are the point at which they come together, and so finding a way to use that. And so it's almost kind of like saying, I don't want this or that. I'm going to choose this and that. All right, Virgo, you have a seventh house full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. Is all about your partnerships, relationships, connections, and collaborations. And these are your interactions with the world. The seventh house is all about what you give to the world, and it's sort of the people that you interact with in it on that one-to-one basis. This could be personal, professional, platonic, or even familial. Since this time, Mercury, your ruling planet, is in your sign, you are very strong at this time, but you are opposed by the eclipse, which means that the world and all of the people you have that you come into contact with are putting a real spotlight on your relationship patterns and style, how you talk to people, how you meet people, how you show up in your connections, how you show up in your relationships might feel like it's really under scrutiny at this time. And it's not to make you feel bad, it's to highlight to you the kinds of relationships that you have in your life and whether they actually work for you or whether you want them or whether you don't. Do you know what I mean? How you relate is going to need to change, right? The moon's ruler is Jupiter, and the sign it's because it's in the sign of Cancer in its exaltation, it's in your 11th house. So the moon's ruler is Jupiter at this time, and it's because it's in its exaltation, it's a friend, a benefactor, or even a colleague could come forward and help you overcome something here. And I really feel like a better sort of you, a better version of you is going to emerge out of this. Not because you're not already great or there's anything wrong with you, but it's like because you're able to see yourself really clearly. You're able to see yourself within your partnerships and your relationships even more clearer. And the relationship habits and patterns and style and interactions are changing for the better. Maybe you give too much, and this is where you put that into some kind of balance. Maybe you don't give enough, and you say, actually, you know what? I feel like I want to give more, but it's coming from a place of choice or decision because the world is giving you feedback about how you relate, and you're taking that and saying, right, okay, these are the things that I want to change based on that feedback. All right. So it's not whatever people say to you, like, fuck them. Right. You do you, Virgo. In a way, the sun. is really well, not in a way, like the sun is obviously very close to the North Node as well. This is like you're able to let go of a version of you that has been a people pleaser, to go even further than that and be honest about where maybe your self-sabotaging nature has got in the way of something. Jupiter in the trine to the eclipse is, it's tight. It's a nice tight orb. It's doing good stuff still. It's sending positive energy. And then obviously Uranus is like rule as the ruler of your 10th house. And the career, maybe that opens up in that regard as well. The eclipse is in the very middle of the sign. So it's like, because obviously this is a square energy to you, right? As a Virgo, you are a mutable sign. Square energy, this is an opposition to you, sorry. And so there's this whole sort of battle of the mutables kind of going on at this moment in time. Where can you give more of yourself, not your stuff or your resources, but more of your emotion, more of your actual self, not the service that you do for others, not the things that you give to them, but more of you, more of the being that is Virgo rather than, the expectation of the being. Since a full moon eclipse, this is also highlighting what new connections and friendships and relationships are really going to be the ones that carry you forward. And, in the spirit of connection and collaboration and all of that, this could be really beneficial for you as well in the long run. For your tarot message, you have the Two of Swords. And the message behind this is now that your intuition is starting to really speak up, you have to find a balance between what you are willing to give, what you're expected to give, and what you feel is your fair portion, right? But that has to come from within. It can't be swayed by anybody else. And that's not to say that you always are. We all are to some degree, but this kind of feels like you're almost doing yourself more justice than you are to other people for a change. Yeah? Sorry, I had to get some water. So, Libra, for you, this is happening in your sixth house. This is a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces in your sixth house. This is all about your health, your habits, and your routines, how you meet the world on a daily level. It's all about your grind. Your hustle and grind is the sixth house. Rent or debts or mortgages, even, etc., is the sixth house. Sixth house is also pets. It's the animals that you have, the animals that you keep. And it's also about how accurately you deploy your resources or not, as the case may be. And what I mean by this is because the sixth house is a maintenance house, right? It's how you care for or look after all the things that you have. Anything that you want to keep will eventually meet your sixth house because you have to maintain it, right? You've got to maintain your car, you've got to maintain your body, you've got to maintain how you maintain your stuff is very sixth house stuff. It's also your physical health and vitality, it's the body, your daily habits and routines. The sun and Mercury are currently in your 12th house, really doing their best to to the murkiness of the past, but also this is helping you really understand like how you can allow the South Node to do its work and clear that space out. It's a moment to see how your future goals and visions are really affecting your mental health or your inner peace. And it's also because it's in opposition to the sixth house, this is the axis of health and maintenance. So your attention is really being brought to that. How do you either do or not do what you need to do to really look after and nurture and nourish yourself? So your habits, your patterns, your daily experience to really get a grip on your how these things like affect your health and your happiness. As an example, if you eat really bad food or you don't eat enough, you're going to be tired, you're going to be ratty, you're going to have bad skin, or whatever the case might be. Since the moon rules your career sector, where Jupiter is, right? And he's sending positive energy to this space. The moon ruling that career sector is bringing, it's really helping you understand like how you can make the most of this. And it's also sort of showing you that if you do your habits, your day-to-day experience in the right way, the career has to grow, it has to expand. So the message here is this is going to show you what you're doing or not doing that is either supporting or not supporting the kind of traction and growth that you would want in your career. It's a real, it could also be a work opportunity that shows up for to help you with your longer term vision, but it's like the in conjunct to Venus at the same time, which is you, right? Something about you or yourself is either being left out. And I do wonder, like, obviously, with your natural tendency of being self-sacrificing, and that's also a very Piscean trait as well. I wonder if this is coming into play here. I hope not. I just really want to. I want you to be really honest with yourself about what your desires and the direction are. And I think the rest will really just fall into place. And then think back to the new moon solar eclipse to ask yourself what was set into motion, and obviously think back even further than that back to March of 2024. What were you setting into motion around these habits, etc., at that time? For this, you've got the Six of Wands. Do you know what's so funny? Like, this card literally represents like celebrating your small wins. And it is very much what you like, like the incremental steps that end up making the whole journey. That's very much a Six of Wands energy. And so the message is the small wins that you make every single day as a result of, or, while using this eclipse energy are really what's going to move the needle or drive you forward in some way. Now, for Scorpio, this is happening in your fifth house. The full moon lunar eclipse in the fifth house is joy, pleasure, creativity, your self-expression. I love this one for you because it's supported by a really strong Jupiter from the ninth house in his exaltation. So there's like a sense of lightness and ease to this, even though it might not necessarily, full moon is still an intense time after all. But I like this because there's a lightness to it. And the fifth house and the ninth houses coming together like this, they're the luckiest houses in the chart. They're the ones that have a buoyancy about them, that have a levity and a lightness that brings the spirit up to the enjoyment and the pleasure that could come in. So I really like this. And I will say, because Jupiter is the ruler of this full moon eclipse, you're not allowed to get down in the dumps and you're not allowed to get too intense at any moment of this eclipse season, right? You have to keep the energy light, you've got to keep it buoyant, and you've got to keep it bouncy. Now, I get it, you guys are Scorpios, you're not naturally, Tigger-like, you're like myself, who is a Leo ascendant. But, but if you want to get the cream out of this, you gotta find the optimism, you gotta find the joy, you gotta lean all the way into it to get it out. Now, that being said, the I've forgotten what I was gonna say. Um Fifth house, ninth house. Fifth house is also children, if you have them, right? So they could feature for you at this time. And because it is an eclipse and it is on the North Node, it's possible that something could be coming in that really brings a sense of joy. The fifth house is also your self-expression. So since this is trying to Jupiter in the ninth house, something that you are either known for or that some of your knowledge, your wisdom, your information could be something that you start to share as a result or as of this full moon onwards that really gets some great results or is really, sees you being very well respected. There's something being revealed to you about yourself as well that could come from friends or benefactors or even just your natural peer group, whereby they're showing you that you are valued and that your approach to things is one that is deeply respected. I really like this. It's like something that you're sharing. Maybe you put it out and you're like, oh, it is what it is, or it's going to be received how it's going to be, and everyone's like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. Or you get lots of praise for something that for you were like, okay, I just did it. Like, well, the Sun and Mercury are they're close to the South Node in that 11th house of yours. Maybe a long-held goal or dream is likely to be phasing out. It could be, maybe it's being phased out because you met it. Maybe you got it and you realize like, oh, actually, now that I have this, it's not really what I wanted, right? It doesn't really speak to me or it's kind of like a little, almost like a little bit of buyer's remorse kind of energy. You do something, you chase something, you get it, you meet that goal, you meet that target, and then you're like, oh, actually, no, this is not what I want. Or it's like, you buy that pair of jeans and then you get home and put them on and you're like, yeah, they don't look as good as they did in the shop. You know, friendships that have run their course might be showing you where people are trying to claim authority over you in some way, shape, or form. Just no longer have it. Like you don't feel sort of aligned or connected to that. Your ruler is in your 12th house at this time, and it's helping you cut ties with indecisiveness, maybe bringing more active harmony to your inner world or your inner psychology. I would also say with this, because Venus is at the top of your chart at this time, but it is in an inconjunct to the full moon. And one of the things with this is it's like there's something about the career path that is either unseen or unfocused as yet. And in all truth, I don't see it as something to worry about because you can't know what you don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll just have to work with it when it comes up. I usually see these as like it's kind of like the second gift. The universe says, yes, I'm giving you this, but you get this as well. And you're like, it doesn't really feel like a gift. Thanks, but no thanks. Um, this is where the self-trust, self-expression is really coming into to show you that. And because the fifth house is like if you have a personal business, if you have a hobby that you really love or etc. And because it's the full moon lunar eclipse on the North Node, maybe you're bringing a hobby back into your world to say like actually this really did me the world of good when I used to do it. Your tarot message is the King of Pentacles. I mean, look, with the fifth and the ninth houses, if anyone's going to be able to Rumpelstiltskin this shit this over this eclipse, it's probably going to be you guys. Well, I would say possibly also Leo as well, right? Because it's happening in a financial space for them. But yeah, I really feel like it's the King of Pentacles. Hello, get this money. But also, it's about solidifying your process. It's about bringing foundation and weight to the things that you have built up to now, your knowledge base, and also finding a way to solidify your message out in the world so that people kind of take it and they go, yeah, you did that. Sagittarius, this is happening in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. It's a deep space in the chart because it represents your foundation, a core part of who you are and all that you stand on as you meet and share yourself with the world. It's therefore a very emotional place, a very soulful one as well. And the fourth house is an occult house of sorts. Um, Especially because it's the hidden self, right? And this means that the energy of the eclipse, which is ruled by Jupiter, your ruling planet, also ties into Lunar's energy, which for you is in the eighth house. So it makes a really potent and quite possibly transformative full moon for you. There could be some really wonderful stuff that comes out of this, especially as you relate to yourself, especially how as you like how you feel about how you're moving through the world. Think about like shining a deep light into the very depths of your emotions or your feelings and having them enhanced or expanded by Jupiter in that eighth house, right? It's bringing a very profound sense of healing and rightness to the things and the emotions that have maybe in the past felt kind of like barbed wire. If you've got anything in your emotional world, in your upbringing, especially as a young person, if you have stuff in that space, This could be a time where those, like when people get close to your stuff, I don't care who you are, I don't care how much work you've done on yourself. At some point, you will have had a moment where someone gets close to your stuff, your triggers or whatever, and you get really, you get really defensive. Um, if you still have stuff like that, and I'm not saying that you do, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you if you do. If you do, it means that you're human like the rest of us. This is the experience that we have. We're going to have a multitude, should I say, of experiences. We're going to have incredible joy, and we're going to have deeply painful hurts and traumas and pain and crises. It's all part of being human. It's all part of what makes this earth walk not either, what makes this earth walk beautiful and devastating, right? Um, the stuff that's felt like barbed wire in here, you've got Mercury and the Sun literally shining their light at this in Virgo, where they're very powerful, and it's bringing a focus and attention and power to your 10th house, right? So who you are and how you really are, who you really are behind closed doors versus your public persona and image are pulling in two different directions at this moment in time. They want and need different things. The full moon happening on the North Node in the 10th house, in the fourth house, is saying that at this time, what you really need at this moment in time is a stronger sense of security, a stronger sense of emotional support and commitment, maybe. Maybe you need a stronger sense of security around your home, your literal living situation, right? The dwelling that you live in. It's, in a sense, it's kind of like you versus the world. It's your home and family. It's, your home and family versus your career and your public persona, right? And save the first and the seventh houses, no other charts can make us feel like we're being rent into than the fourth and the 10th house eclipses, right? Because they're angular houses. When they're in your sign and the opposite sign, or the fourth house and the 10th house, these are angular spaces in the chart that really pull. You can really feel this. Since Mercury rules your relationships of all kinds, personal, professional, platonic, um, because it rules Gemini, it's possible that relationships of consequence get a little tense at this time, and they highlight what and where you are needing to really get serious about your commitments, especially for those of you that have authority in your life in some regard, right? And what I mean by this is like where you have sort of ultimate power over everything in your world, that might be checked now to say, well, yeah, okay, you've got ultimate power, you can make any choice that you want, but how do those choices affect other people? As Jupiter is the ruler of this eclipse and it's sending positive, powerful energies to the eclipse itself, I think that combined with the fact that it's a North Node eclipse means that whatever is happening at this moment in time, it will come to something beneficial, even if it feels like it's being forced all the way in with no lube. Um, sometimes I just, whatever. You get my drift. I'm sorry. For, for your tarot message, you have the Six of Cups. This literally represents your actual childhood. This literally represents your core memories. It represents your nostalgic memories as well. It would not be a surprise to me if you have a deeply nostalgic time at this time. It would not be a surprise to me if you end up seeking or looking for things that brought you comfort as a young person, or acknowledging that there wasn't a lot of those things around for you as a young person, and you're addressing that now. It's like you see your past, you see your childhood, you see your emotions and how you relate to people now in a really clear light. And you're able to say this about my emotions needs to adapt so that I can be more conscious of how I show up in my relationship, and more importantly, once I've got all of that internal stuff sorted, I know that my career can flourish. But that's not the priority right now. You are the priority, your deep emotional self. The fourth house and the moon are who we are when the curtains are drawn and the door is shut. It's the us behind closed doors. It's the us that people don't get to see every day. It's the us that only our parents or our partner really kind of know, or our cats if we've got them. Um, sorry, that was so random. I told you there are times I really, sometimes I wish I could just stop, stop the train. Okay, Capricorn, for you, this is a third house full moon lunar eclipse. This is happening in a house that is just as much for, and I will say this, just as much in the third house as those in the fourth house. Eclipses that happen in the third will usually prompt a change in work, or more often a change in home, because the third house is the local area, home, where you live, how you live there, your neighbors, your siblings, your cousins, your local travel, the place that you buy your milk from, the websites that you use every day. Everything that has that sort of local feel to it, the office that you commute to every day, all of that is third house stuff. Are you ready to change where and how you live? This eclipse on the North Node in Pisces and trying to its ruler Jupiter is very likely to bring something like this about. I would not be surprised if over the course of the next 6 months, a lot of Capricorns either change their place of living or their place of work. This is a very beneficial eclipse, and I feel because it's tied to the node and Jupiter is in his sign of exaltation in your seventh house, in the house of partnerships and relationships and connections. Those that are personal, professional, platonic, as I always say. Jupiter is blessings and benefactors, which means that there's someone that can help you that is coming in over the next few months. Jupiter for you rules your 12th house, and it also of your spiritual sector in your past, and it also rules foreign lands, and also your third house of your daily activities and area and locality. Like, and I've seen these activations create changes in environments for a lot of people, which is why I mention it, including myself. So I kind of, and the way that it tends to happen is it's kind of like the one will do the activation, but the other one sees the change sort of move in, if that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if a move unfolds here, or at least a change in how you interact with your local community, and more importantly, why. The Sun and Mercury across the sky, both in Virgo, where Mercury is also in its exaltation according to ancient astrology, and the attention is on foreign lands, distant shores, potentially higher learning and education in some way, shape, or form. Now, on the other hand, you might be called to learn, to write, to speak, to expand your mind or your daily habits in some regard. Excuse me. Mercury as the ruler of your sixth house. And the reason in some way, shape, or form is going to be money. Remember, it's Mercury that rules money. Venus is luxury and pleasures, etc. But Mercury is the money planet. Mercury is commerce. Mercury is the flow of cash, of interactions. Mercury is the flow and the cadence of transactions as well. You want to be more valuable in order to ask for more money. And what's interesting is that Mercury ruling the sixth house of your daily habits means that whatever you're doing, you're starting to habit stack, right? You're building just like you do, slowly but surely for the long term. And since your ruler is now back in Pisces and retrograde, you might be rethinking what you do on a daily level and how you use your old skills in new ways in the best time that is spent sort of moving forward. The moon is also This full moon lunar eclipse is happening bang in the center of the sign. It's going to take time to unfold, right? But it will manifest materially and it will likely come good because it's trying to its ruler and its ruler happens to be Jupiter. It gives this moon just as much power as Mercury. Then depending on who you speak to, right? Maybe even more so. Your mind is open and your ability to learn is immense. And I think this is just going to grow and expand even more so. For this, you've got the High Priestess, so your inner knowing, your intuitive knowing, your intuitive faculty, your psychic awareness and gifts are being highlighted to you. Messages will come to you from oracles of sorts, whether these are people that you seek out. Remember, Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is your seventh house. Your tarot reader, your astrologer, your numerologist. Hey, um, you're right, your human design reader, whatever the system is, that's someone that you have a relationship with, right? A seventh house thing. Since Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer and the High Priestess, although she's not the sign of Cancer, she is the moon. She is all things Cancerian, right? It feels to me like an oracle of sorts will be able to guide you. And what's interesting is the third house is a communication house. What you communicate, your reading, your writing, your speaking. So it's possible that an oracle of sorts gives you a message or gives you a path or says, this is what you want to look at or this is where you want to go. And you're like, fuck, that hit home, right? They really nail it. And it might be, because it's an eclipse as well, it might be just a really short message that they give you. You know, you might have a whole reading with someone and you're like, okay, yes, the reading was great, but then they said this to me and the fucking hair on the back of my neck stood up. Do you know what I mean? I'll tell you this story and then I'll move on. About 2 years ago, I was giving a lady a reading and she wasn't rolling her eyes, but I could tell she was a bit like, oh, I can't see how any of this stuff's going to happen for me. And then I remember saying something to her. And I said, but this is happening now, and you refuse to acknowledge it. In fact, you try to ignore it and sweep it under the carpet. And the longer you do that, the longer you're going to block your blessings. I shit you not. I'm not going to give you any other details. This woman's eyes, like you should have seen them, they went oof, like this. And she was like, okay. Right. And then after, I think it was about 3 or 4 months later, she sent me an email to say, like, I couldn't see it at the time, but like all of these things that you told me, like they're starting to happen now. So, and I say this not to be like, oh, look at me, I'm so amazing. And I'm saying this to demonstrate the point. Maybe you have a session with someone, it doesn't have to be me. Maybe you have a session with someone and they, you're like, okay, yeah, it was great. But then they say something to you and you're like, whoa, whoa, like, you're speaking to my soul. Aquarius, my sun sign brothers and sisters, you are having this full moon lunar eclipse in your second house of money, finances, and resources. You know, it's hard out here for pimp. Aquarius, it has been hard out here for the water bearers in the realm of finances, has it not? Right? Why? Because especially if you're an ascendant Aquarius, you've had Saturn moving through your second house. And for that was no picnic. And then on top of that, now you're having eclipses in this uh, second eighth house axis. Part of that is down to your ancient ruler moving through Pisces, right? Which is never about punishment. It's about getting you to really think about and use your resources wisely. Aquarius people are one of the signs that are least concerned with money. We kind of don't see it like a lot of other signs. I'm not saying that we're saying to give it all away, but we like consider we have the sign of compassion, of giving, of selflessness in the second house of money, right? So Aquarius is one of the kindest people when it comes to money, one of the most giving. We often have a meh, it's kind of only money sort of attitude. So if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I know Aquarians that aren't like this, that's probably coming from some other placement in their chart. The full moon lunar eclipse here is bringing a fresh wave of energy, washing away, it's Pisces, water, washing away old karmic cycles and energies when it comes to your money, your finances, and your resources. And it's helping you find a greater sense of value in yourself. It's like now you're taking that compassion that you have with others and money, and you're turning it inward on yourself to say, I'm going to give myself a clean slate. Jupiter over there in your sixth house of daily experience, habits, drudgery, and energy is giving you a boost, right? To say that now, what you do on a daily basis is going to start moving the needle, albeit maybe slowly, maybe cautiously. Since Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces, this really strengthens this moon and it gives it a blessing effect. This could be where benefactors or supporters come in for you, especially through work. Maybe you start to build up or make new connections in those areas, especially like people that you interact with daily in terms of work. The moon is opposing the sun and Mercury in the sign of Virgo in your eighth house, bringing your attention to the larger sums of money, investments, pensions, considerations about longer term finances, around taxes, debts, loans, things like mortgages. And it could see you really stabilizing your finances because Mercury rules the fifth and your eighth house, right? So it's like you could see this and say, okay, now I understand what I need to do. I'm going to start walking towards this on an incremental level, especially because Jupiter's in that sixth house. So he's kind of saying to you, if you clean up your habits, I will bless you with this money, Henny. Okay. So I really like that. It could also be a helpful person who's likely to be a woman or an older person to you could give you a gift of something, or possibly you could even win some money, as a part of this. Do play the lotto. Why not? What have you got to lose besides, the money for a ticket, which is minimal? It does feel like this would be a larger than usual sum, though, especially because we're considering the fifth and the eighth houses. And obviously, then we've got Venus and Mercury in the mix as well. Now, it could also be that an important conversation about all of the things that I've mentioned comes up at this time. And if it does, know that in the long run, this is really going to benefit you. It just centers around you seeing yourself with as much compassion as you see others, and then communicating from your soul about how you really feel about money, and more importantly, that you recognize and accept that your desire for money is not actually a bad thing. For this, you have the Eight of Wands. So basically, once you make the shifts and the changes and you connect to this energy and you start moving with it, you're going to see things unfold really, really fast. There are opportunities coming in that you can't even fathom at this moment in time. There are also conversations that will be very lucrative that are coming in for you at this time. And I would not be surprised if new goals emerge as a result of realizing what is possible. Within the first 8 days of the eclipse, I think your activation will have shown up. Um, Not all of it, not in its totality, but within the first 8 days, I think so. For Pisces, last but never least, this is happening in your first house. This is you, right? It's in your first house. You are being eclipsed, you and your ruler, right? Jupiter is in the fifth house and it's exalted. That's wonderful because it's a deeply creative time for you anyway, and a time where luck can really just find you. So when it does, you milk it. Now, that being said, eclipses in the first and the seventh houses, this is what we call angular houses. You're going to feel this, right? A full moon is already a time of heightened emotion. So it means that in some way, shape, or form, you are being eclipsed. And as such, I do want to be honest here, you might feel both exposed and overlooked all at the same time, right? And over the course of the next 6 months, you might find that you have these opposing feelings at the same time. Like at one point, you feel slightly overlooked, at the next point, you feel kind of like a bit sort of exposed to everything. The moon rules your Jupiter and Jupiter rules this moon, which means that if you can allow them to flow, and taint no other sign that understands flow like a Pisces, maybe Gemini, right? But outside of that, like you understand flow better than anybody else. There are blessings and here, and there is also luck that can really unfold for you, but it requires a lot of really deep honesty about where you're at, what you really desire, what is possible, and what is not. And because yours is the sign of boundless exploration, right? Like literally the sign of Neptune in modern astrology, the sign of Jupiter in ancient astrology. There are no limits for Pisces. The only limit really is the level to which you can use this. The Sun and Mercury in your seventh house of relationships, personal, professional, platonic, are highlighted at this time. And really, they're helping you see how you relate to people and maybe how the relationships that you have either do or do not support you. Since the Sun for you rules the sixth house of work and daily habits, and Mercury rules the relationships and the home life. It's possible that the blessings come through family or center around your living situation, like where you live, how you live there, who you live with. The first and the seventh house axis, because they are angular activations, are very powerful and ones that usually bring a lot of change. You all know the story about my uh, eclipses on my sun, and my sun and my ascendant are also my oh gosh, I'm butchering this, but basically, when I had eclipses in the first and the seventh houses, was when I got up off my desk and said, fuck this. I walked out and I went into radiant reality full time. First and seventh house axis eclipses tend to activate big stuff. We feel them in big ways or very visceral ones. Over the next 6 months, your outlook, your body, your mind, your personality are going to shift in ways that you can't really fathom just yet. And as and when they do, I think you're going to look back and say, wow, not only was that a powerful eclipse, but I feel more like myself than I ever have before. Jupiter is also sextile to both the Sun and the South Node at this time. It's giving you a much clearer idea of what needs to be phased out, and also maybe a desire to date outside your usual realm, like who you have usually gone for. Maybe you go for somebody completely different. Maybe you go for somebody who is from a different space. I think there's definitely something on the horizon for you in relationships, but I think they represent something or someone very different to what you're used to. And the reason for that is because you yourself are no longer going to be who you remember or recognize, right? You're changing and you're shifting, and ultimately everything and everyone needs to do the same thing with you. Your tarot message is the Justice card. It's all about commitment, contract, newfound commitment to self, newfound commitment to relationships, newfound commitment to partnerships and connections and collaborations. But more importantly, there's a greater sense of fairness and equality. And I think the reason that this is coming through is because you're about to start putting yourself first, which is actually the fair thing to do because Pisces is the most self-sacrificing sign of the zodiac. With that said, if you liked this, please don't forget to like, share, give it a thumbs up. If you want to book a personal reading with me, you can do so on the links in the description box below. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Share it with somebody that you think might get something out of it. And yeah, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. You're going to tell me how it goes for you and whether, I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of this one just because I'm expecting good things of this eclipse. With that said, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Take care, and I'll see you soon.